Hello there, I'm Eva Pilgrim. Thanks for streaming with us. Week 2 of testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs trial, starting with multiple witnesses who say they saw Diddy being physically violent toward his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. And for the first time, the public can see the stark visual evidence of the violence Cassie testified that she suffered at the hands of Combs. We want to warn you that some of these images can be disturbing. The government releasing a new batch of images showing injuries Cassie described, plus thousands of dollars of cash found in a fanny pack, drugs and baby oil, all allegedly used during the sex parties witnesses have detailed. Earlier in the day, Dawn Richard, a former member of the girl group Diddy Trial, wrapped up her testimony against Combs. She allegedly saw Combs abuse Cassie multiple times and urged Cassie to leave him. She testified about one incident saying, quote, Puff and Cassie were in the hallway arguing. He punched her in the face. Sean Combs punched her in the face. But on cross-examination, the defense questioning Richard about changing her story several times over the years. Also taking the stand today, Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Kerry Morgan. She described witnessing Combs assaulting Cassie twice, the first time in a home Combs was renting in the Hollywood Hills. Morgan testified that, quote, I saw him push her. I'm pretty sure he hit her. The second time allegedly happened in Jamaica. Morgan says they were in the bar area of a home when, quote, I heard her screaming. She recalled guttural, terrifying screams. Combs faces the possibility of life in prison if convicted. He's pleaded not guilty and has denied all wrongdoing. We have our team of reporter and analysts closely following the case from inside the courtroom. Coming up a little later, we're joined in the studio by one of Sean Combs' close friends who has been at court every day of this trial. But we begin in Lower Manhattan with our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky. He was in court all day. He joins us now outside the federal courthouse. Aaron, former Diddy Trial and Diddy Dirty Money member Dawn Richard back on the witness stand today. She says she saw Diddy punch Cassie Ventura in the face. What was the reaction in the courtroom?
You know, I think this jury has heard so much already that has been so graphic and disturbing that any one instance Eva hasn't necessarily caused a reaction. The jury was much more interested, I think, in the cross-examination as her accounts were challenged. But this involved a festival in Central Park where apparently Diddy Dirty Money was going to be announced as a band. She and her bandmate, Kalina Harper, were with Cassie Ventura getting ready in a bathroom in Combs' home, his apartment, she testified, when heard screaming, and then with a closed fist saw that Sean Combs had hit Cassie Ventura in the face. And what was notable was how she followed up the testimony that Cassie started crying, came into the bathroom, and immediately started putting on copious amounts of makeup, and she wore sunglasses to the festival to try and cover up the injury. And Dawn Richard said she and Kalina Harper donned sunglasses also, a form of solidarity.
There were some things, Aaron, that Richard was not allowed to talk about on the stand. Talk to us about this.
Yeah, the defense had tried to limit the scope of her testimony, in some cases successfully, because the defense believes that much of Richard's account and much of the prosecutor's whole case is based on gossip about what people heard, about stories people would tell about Sean Combs. So she couldn't get into any of that. But what she witnessed, she said, was Sean Combs try to take a swing at Cassie Ventura with a frying pan, the instance where punched her with a closed fist, and then another instance in Los Angeles that she said she witnessed when Sean Combs punched Cassie Ventura in the stomach at a restaurant. They were there having dinner with other celebrities, she said, to include Usher and Neo at the time.
You mentioned the jury was much more interested in what happened during her cross-examination. What happened?
The cross-examination involved defense attorney Nicole Westmoreland challenging Dawn Richard's memory and her accounts, which she noted in some cases changed up to 4 times when she recalled specifics one way and then another and then another and then another. And finally, Dawn Richard said she was recalling things to the best of her ability, but the defense sought to portray her as someone whose memory could not be relied on by the jury, somebody who was out for money, who sued her, Sean Combs, in civil court, and somebody who may have been out more for revenge because she was angry that Sean Combs eventually dismantled the two groups she was part of, Diddy Dirty Money and before that, Diddy Trial.
I also want to talk about the reported freak-off in 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. That came up again today. Kerry Morgan was on the stand. That was Cassie Ventura's former best friend. What did Kerry say happened after that incident?
Cassie Ventura left the Intercontinental Hotel, went back to her apartment, her home, and there was Kerry Morgan waiting. She said immediately she saw the black eye that Ventura had testified Combs gave her after the freak-off got violent, and the whole reason why then the subsequent assault in the hallway happened. And then Kerry Morgan said about a half hour later, Sean Combs starts banging on the door with a hammer. It was not let in, but she said she heard him yelling, finally called some of Combs' staff members to try to get him to leave. Police were called, but Cassie Ventura said, and Kerry Morgan backed this up, that nothing ever came of it because Cassie Ventura refused to say anything about Sean Combs and what happened to her.
Aaron, I have to ask you, because Combs was sitting just feet away from Don Richard and Kerry Morgan in court today. How did he react to seeing them and hearing all of this?
He's been an attentive listener. In some cases, he would shake his head or nod along or consult with his lawyers, scribbling a lot of notes. This was an important part of the testimony because it made a turn, Eva. The jury had heard from Cassie Ventura directly about, in rather explicit terms, a lot of the sex acts. But the prosecution's whole case is that she was coerced into that sex because of the violence, the kind of violence that both Don Richard and Kerry Morgan said they witnessed. Now, the defense says there are other reasons for the violence. Jealousy, drugs, didn't have anything to do with coercing her into sex. But the prosecutors want the jury to hear these accounts to say that Cassie Ventura was not only telling the truth about being beat up, but that she had reason to then go along with Sean Combs' sexual demands.
Aaron Koturski for us there outside the courthouse. Thank you so much, Aaron. And let's bring in ABC News legal contributor and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Bernardo Villalona, who was also inside of that courtroom today. Okay, so I want to start with just big picture today. What were some of the moments that stood out to you?
So big picture today, just like how Aaron stated. So in terms of the biggest moment, one of the biggest moments is when Kerry Morgan testified. And when she specifically testified is to give us the back end of what happened after that Intercontinental video. So she states that Cassie was in the house and of course had that visible black eye. But in addition to that, that while she was sitting there, that Sean Combs came to the door banging with a hammer continuously to the point where officers responded to the location hours later. But guess who didn't call the police? Kerry Morgan didn't call the police, nor did Cassie call the police. So it must have been loud enough that neighbors called the police and eventually responded to the location. But unfortunately, Cassie, she wasn't cooperative with the police and didn't even provide them with her identification.
Don Richard finished her testimony today. Give us the cliff notes here.
So in terms of Don Richard, now dealing with Don Richard, look, her testimony, sure, during direct examination, she did fine on Friday. But remember, you can't tell how good a witness is until they get to cross-examination. And the defense did an excellent job with Don Richard today because, like was stated, she gave different versions as to what this assault took place, how it took place, whether Cassie was struck with the frying pan, whether he threw it to the wall, or whether he threatened her. It was 4 different versions, and the defense was able to cross-examine and weaken her credibility and also show that she has an axe to grind.
You already mentioned the second witness today, Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Kerry Morgan. What did Kerry have to say?
So let me tell you, Kerry Morgan is crucial. And she came crucial because she comes off as credible. Because one of the first statements that she made is that she came here because she was compelled to testify. She no longer speaks to Cassie Ventura. They stopped talking in 2018 after this incident having to deal with where she was assaulted by Sean Combs, where Sean Combs grabbed her by the neck and also threw a wooden hanger at her. But also that it led to Cassie giving her $30,000 so she wouldn't say anything about that specific incident. And that was the end of their relationship. She also corroborated 2 of the assaults that took place, having to deal with Cassie in terms of her being drugged and as well as her being punched. So she corroborated a lot of the testimony, but she came off as a neutral witness. And the defense wasn't able to break her as they wanted to, but was able to say that, look, it was still a loving relationship.
People have been critical of the defense. How do you think they did today on cross?
So today they were able to rebound. Now this defense, so we're looking at Mark Agnifilo. Mark Agnifilo was a person who cross-examined Kerry Morgan. So remember, with every witness, you're not going to get a Matlock moment. But he was able to get bits of pieces from Kerry Morgan in the sense of saying, like, look, they were in a loving relationship. You know, you had told them to break up, but you also told them to stay together because of how much they loved each other. Also was able to get, like, look, there were a lot of good times. There were a lot of fun times. There were a lot of party times. This was something that was normal amongst each other, but they did great today.
Let's talk about what we're seeing today. Photos from Diddy's 2016 hotel room from the Intercontinental have now been entered into evidence. The images show baby oil, medications, substances that tested positive for ketamine. Yeah, we've got the pictures right here. Why do these photos matter?
So this is really important. It's important in the sense that on the day that Sean Combs was arrested, this is what they found inside of his hotel room. And what they specifically found is what Cassie had been talking about all along. The setup for the freak off. There was a strobe light that was there. The drugs, the money, the baby oil. And specifically in terms of the money, remember that the second witness that testified, Mr. Phillip, that he was paid somewhere in a couple $100 up to $6,000. There was $9,000 that was recovered here, but hey, inflation, everything has gone up, right? So this testimony and these photographs actually corroborate the testimony of Cassie, and I'm sure that's going to corroborate the other testimony of witnesses that are going to testify, but pretty much showing a pattern of what these freak-offs encompass.
And again, these found the day he was arrested.
Yes, years later, and still we're freaking off.
Bernardo, thank you so much for being
you.
here. And still ahead, why there's so much interest in rapper Young Miami when it comes to this trial. And up next, one of Diddy's close friends spanning decades joins me live here in the studio. Stay with us. Welcome back. You are watching Burden of Proof, the case against Diddy. Tonight, a glimpse into Sean Combs' inner circle as the hip-hop mogul faces sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy charges, all of which he has denied. Joining us here in studio, Combs' longtime friends, Charlucci Finney. You have known Combs for 35 plus years. You got your sweatshirt on. We've seen you in the sweatshirt a lot. Free Puff.
Yes.
You've been sitting in the courtroom. And I understand he's actually choosing who of his circle gets to be in the courtroom with him. So you are very inner circle.
Yes, ma'am.
Who is the Sean Combs that you know?
Oh, man. Funny, kind, creative, just a visionary. He's a dad, he's a son, he's an uncle, he's a cousin, and he's my brother, he's my friend.
So many people not standing by your side in this moment. Why have you chosen to stay there?
I didn't have a choice. That's my brother, and I'm going to ride with him.
I have to ask you, he's charged with racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. He's pleaded not guilty. Does that sound like the friend that you know?
Absolutely not.
Do you think he did those things?
Absolutely not.
You seem pretty confident of that. Why are you so confident of that?
Because that's not who he is. Those are allegations, right? And they have to prove the allegations. They have to prove that. I've seen nothing, and no one else seen that. The only thing you're hearing about is domestic violence. You're not hearing anything about the sex trafficking. You're not hearing nothing. I'm waiting for I'm waiting for the government to show us everything that they promised us. When I mean us, I'm talking about the viewers, friends, family. You said he did all these hellacious and crazy things. I want to see it.
Let's talk about some of what we heard in court. We've heard that testimony from Cassie, a lot about how he's controlled her life. Did you know him to be a controlling man?
Not really. I mean, he's pretty fair. I mean,
choosing the nail polish and the clothes and the
hairstyles. When you're in the music business, right, and you're a creative and you're an executive producer, you can't just have your artists just running out, just any way they want to look. It's a look they have to have, right? She has to be clean. Her nails have to be done. Her hair has to be, It's a certain style you give the artist. And Bad Boy had a certain type of style that the artists presented. They represented Bad Boy.
Where was the line between artist and his girlfriend?
I don't. You would have to ask them on that. I don't know. But all I know is that when you're developing an artist, you have an idea of how you want that artist to look. I mean, Prince didn't really walk outside with chaps with his butt out. He really didn't walk around the street like that, right? But that was his image, and that's what he needed. Michael Jackson didn't walk around the way he did when he walked on stage, with the one glove and the shiny stuff. It's the image, and you have to stick with that image if you're trying to create an artist a look. You have to go with the look.
There have been some shocking things discussed in court. The freak-offs, for one.
Yeah,
Did you know about the freak-offs?
No.
You didn't know about the freak-offs. When you heard about the freak-offs and what were happening, were you surprised?
No, I just thought that was their personal business. It was two consenting adults doing grown, consenting adult things that they like to do.
Did you ever see or know of Diddy to get violent with Cassie or with anyone else?
No.
You never saw any violence at all?
Never.
The surveillance video that is of the hotel that has become pretty infamous at this point. When you watch that video, what do you see?
I see what y'all see. I seen him in a domestic situation with a girlfriend, and it wasn't good. It's never good. It's never good for a man to put a hand on a woman or a woman to put a hand on a man. Everybody should keep their hands to themselves. But that's domestic, and that's not what he's being charged with. He's being charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, and prostitution. I want to stick to, that's what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about that because that's...
So Cassie testified that that was the one time she tried to leave a freak off. The defense has said she was free to go. Do you think she was free to leave?
Yes, I agree with the defense. They know more than I would know. That's not my area of expertise. But looking at it and understanding and hearing the testimonies, yes, I agree with them.
The drug addiction, the drug use, did you know about that?
No, I did not.
Did you hear about the overdose? Did you have any idea?
Never heard about that.
You guys are pretty close. I mean, 35 years.
Yeah, but certain things, you don't tell your closest people everything. You tell them some things, but you don't tell them everything because there's a life, then there's a private life. And that was his private life, and that was their private life. And they shared that moment amongst them too.
I have to ask you, because people have noticed you and Sean Combs exchanging looks in the courtroom.
Yes.
What are the looks about?
He's telling me, don't worry about him, he's okay. He's focused. He's selfless. So he's concerned about how I feel, how his sister feel, how his mom feel, how his kids feel. He's telling everybody, be calm. I don't want y'all all upset. He's in jail worrying about us.
Because you've been walking his family in every day.
Yes.
Are you going to be there tomorrow?
I'm going to be there every day.
Every day till the trial's over?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much for coming here today.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Kerry Morgan, takes the stand, and there was a lot of interest in her online. What we know about her and why she says she had a falling out with Cassie when we come back. Welcome back. More on the Sean Diddy Combs trial in just a minute. But first, let's get you up to speed on some of the other big court cases we're following. Day 18 in the Karen Reed murder retrial in Massachusetts. On the stand today, a DNA analyst. He testified about a hair sample taken from Reed's SUV, saying he's 95% sure that 99.9% of the population can be excluded, but not excluded John O'Keefe. Reed has pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder charges in the 2022 death of her then-boyfriend, who was also a Boston police officer. Svetlana, the alleged stowaway, now heading to trial. Opening statements expected to start tomorrow. Svetlana Dali is accused of sneaking onto a Delta flight from New York to Paris just before Thanksgiving. Video obtained by ABC shows her walking up to a terminal gate, then following behind a group of passengers being ushered towards the jet bridge. Dali has pleaded not guilty in that case. And the trial for a former Minnesota Twins pitcher now underway in California. Dan Serafini is accused of ambushing and killing his father-in-law and attempting to kill his mother-in-law in 2021. Samantha Scott, the family's nanny and Serafini's alleged mistress, has pleaded guilty to being an accomplice in the case. His wife is expected to take the stand on his behalf. Serafini has pleaded not guilty to the charges. The Sean Diddy Combs trial begins its second week of testimony. We are taking a look at the top internet searches related to this high-profile trial in a segment we call Searched. Some of today's biggest search terms include Kerry Morgan, Young Miami, Aubrey O'Day, and the question of whether Combs could walk free. ABC News contributor Kelly Carter joins us now from Los Angeles. She covers entertainment and pop culture for us. Okay, let's look at some of these searches. Cassie Ventura's former best friend took the stand today. She's one of the names that was being searched. What do we know about her?
Yeah, here's what we know about her. She was a former model. The two of them met when they were teenagers and eventually lived together at some point. And she, on stand today, she testified that she was assaulted with a wooden hanger, and that action kind of ended her friendship with Cassie. But, she also talked about traveling the world, essentially with her and spending time with Cassie and Sean Combs, and said that there was love there, in her testimony today.
Carisha Brownlee, a.k.a. Young Miami, coming up in a lot of searches. Why is everyone so interested in her relationship with Combs?
Yeah, Young Miami, who's a city girl, and she dated Sean Combs, and not only dated him, but had a podcast on his network, Revolt Network. And in the first podcast that she had, she sat down and interviewed him about their relationship. My guess is that that podcast segment is probably going way up with the numbers right now because people are looking for clues or looking for anything that maybe the two of them would have given in their relationship that might somehow, some way, shed a little bit of light about how he operates inside of relationships.
Another search we're seeing, Aubrey O'Day. Will she testify? Who is she? Why could she be important?
Aubrey O'Day is a former member of Diddy Trial, which obviously was the group that was founded on the iteration of Making the Band that Sean Combs oversaw. Listen, the people have been wanting to see Aubrey O'Day on the stand because she, quite frankly, has been very vocal about what she says are problematic things with Sean Combs. She actually had a solo reality show on Oxygen about 15 years back. And I remember, because I watched every episode of that show, it ended with her making a phone call to him. He did not pick up, but she really, kind of made the point that she wanted to release herself from what she said, were burdens, being tied to Sean Combs at that time.
Lastly, we have the search, could Diddy walk free?
Yeah, everyone wants to know. I think we're seeing in real time people learning a little bit about the judicial system, which is interesting because unlike the OJ trial from 30 years ago, when we saw, a lot of what happened in courtroom, we're not seeing that. We're only reading about it, and people just want to know what's at stake and if he actually might be able to be found not guilty.
Kelly Carter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us as well. We'll be back with new episodes every day of the trial. The show streams right here on ABC News Live, Disney Plus, and Hulu weekdays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. For even more on the Diddy trial, make sure to follow our podcast, Bad Rap, The Case Against Diddy, hosted by our very own Brian Buckmeyer on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'm Eve Pilgrim in New York. Have a good rest of the day.